kind of overstated in my wealth, right? But that was also part of my ideal identity. You know, I wanted people to notice that I was understated in my in my wealth. You know. Once I am that person that I've looked up to, I'm gonna fucking walk around in a nice suit and like subtly let everyone know that I'm making loads of money, subconsciously, I guess. And that's just not a fucking rewarding, fulfilling way to live at all.
Welcome. I'm your host, Martijn Smeets, mental health trainer for entrepreneurs, and in this podcast, Redefine Success, Unscripted Stories, we'll dive into raw, unfiltered stories of people breaking the mold to inspire you to let go of the societal pressure and norm of success. And if you love what you hear, then drop a review and make sure to check out the Thrive Tribe, a community where personal and professional well-being comes together. Let's dive into it. Welcome, Alex. It's so nice to have you here. So nice to reconnect with you again. We connected, I think, if I remember correctly, on my first winter season back in 2016 is when we first met each other. What was it then? I think I was 21 back then. Very different person than I am today. The second season. And then, there was very little contact. And then we actually, around the topics that we're talking about today, a little bit as well, mental health, working on ourselves. Until we got to the point that you actually joined a retreat that we were hosting in Malaga, and I got to see that different side of you, or the evolved Alex, if I can put it that way. And, really inspiring to see how you went from that corporate world into, your journey that we'll dive into a little bit more deeper, and then into you became a coach, but then now you have a hostel in Koh Tao, Thailand, what I think is an amazing idea, because I personally love Koh Tao myself, slowly turning that into a retreat base, if I remember. So there's a lot to talk about there and a lot to unpack there, and I'm looking forward to dive into it, Alex. So thank you for being here.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for that that wonderful intro. And it's good to see you too, buddy. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, amazing. Because we had a call, I think it was roughly a month ago or so, maybe a bit more, where because I was thinking about this podcast, I was really thinking, who do I know that really, went to that point of being successful in the eyes of society and then completely turned their life around. And I remember you saying that you were really climbing a corporate ladder and you were doing very well financially, but that then, internally things weren't feeling as successful, and then made that shift. So that made me really interested, to have you here. And let's just dive right into it. Let's start with this question. So we'll dive into your journey in a minute, after this. But at this moment in time, what is your version of success? If you would describe your successful life, what would that be for you at this moment in time?
Cool. Yeah, I think that, there's some, when we talk about the definition of success, for me, there's always a question of semantics. A little bit, because success kind of on a technicality, success in a certain venture, I've been successful at that or this, achieving a certain goal. And sometimes I think the word can just be a little bit problematic like that. For me, I think what the life that I would like to live really looks like is so that's a big question, isn't it? But ultimately, it's a life where I am healthy and happy, and I am, filling up my time with rich, fulfilling experiences and relationships and connections. I think that's super high level, vague kind of description that I just resonate with. But, that is, because about success, and I guess this is, the word for me, it still just carries a lot of financial connotations. And it is still something that I kind of, value, I guess, in a way, yeah. Although that relationship has changed a lot. But I think just the priority of that financial success versus other components of life has been a major kind of theme of my transformation of development. I get that a lot. 5, 6 years.
And I'm like, of course, exactly for that reason is why I wanted this podcast, because success has, this very, very close, this descriptive way of it is career, but I believe it's so much more than that. And that is, that's why I found this so interesting, because I know you come from a much more financial background. And like, we've had some really interesting people here already, and all the stories are different. And like you say, it's very vague what you're saying right now, because also probably in your mind, when you hear success, like you say it yourself, you think about that financial success. Because like, but what you mentioned is it's a happy life. It's where, with connections, with doing things that you enjoy. If you can, could you describe a day out of that life for me?
Yeah. A day in the life, it's, like you, I share a passion for winter sports and the Alps. Obviously, I'm living in Thailand, right? So I try to get back to the Alps for a few months each year. I think that a day in the life can look, very different depending on where I am. But here, for example, a good day, it's normally waking up at a decent hour, 7 or 8. Getting outside early on in the daylight, eating a good breakfast, working here in the hostel, interacting with my staff, interacting with my guests, and being productive and contributing to this part of my life, this business. And probably in the evening, a few times a week. Also, these days, this is another thing that's kind of been shifting in the recent years. I like to go down to the beach and have a couple of beers with some of my friends at sunset, and eat dinner perhaps, or come back and eat dinner, and chill out and go to bed. Simple.
Yep.
And that is that's a nice day. And if I'm in Austria, it's a different kind of a lifestyle, right? Getting up early, getting on that first lift, and tearing up the mountains for a day, and having fun with all for a while.
Yeah, and I like the main thing that I hear in there. It's simple. You said it yourself. There's nothing extravagant. There's nothing crazy. It's just the simple things of getting up and enjoying your morning, being productive, working on something that you're passionate about. And then, because, I had to think about this beforehand as well, because actually when Alex and me had a conversation about this podcast, Alex said to me, like, yeah, Alex, I just want to make sure that, like, I still have a couple of beers in the evening, and, I'm not all in this personal development. I'm constantly working really hard on myself, because that is, you talk about that when you hear success, thinking about that financial success, but that's the other side of success as well, of, where we don't think about finances, and, we have to live in this spiritual bubble and constantly working on ourselves and constantly, being in a meditative state all day. No, because like what I really want to bring across is that your successful life is yours, and you can fill that in however you want. And if that means, for someone to be in meditation all day and like is honest with himself, and if that feels good, that's all right. Because I really enjoy having a beer from time to time as well, and maybe a couple too many as well. It happens. So that's why, like, I find it very important or very good that you mentioned that, in the sense of, having a couple of beers in the evening.
For sure.
Because
I can relate to what you're saying. Yeah. I feel like there was a time when I did like a hard pivot, a 180 degrees pivot from like champagne and cocaine to, like gratitude and service and purity and, sobriety to the, and there's like that was a stark contrast, and I don't think that either of those paths were for me necessarily the most fulfilling. It's a little bit more about balance. I say it's about balance. That's not to suggest that I walk through life in this really balanced, moderated way. I think that that's the right way, and I aspire toward that. But I'm definitely kind of like also an extreme person, and I like extreme experiences and adrenaline, and I definitely go too hard on one thing, and then make a mess and then, recover back and do something else. But I think what has happened over time and what I value more over time is that balance. Yeah. That becomes more of a constant.
But is when you talk about that balance, I think that's a very interesting topic to talk about because work-life balance is such a big, word thrown around everywhere. But I personally believe it's not, we chase it too much, but it's something that we can't achieve. Because there's going to be moments in our life where that balance looks completely different. Like my balance can look completely different today than it will look next week and next month and next year. So that's why I think like chasing it is a very different thing, but striving for it is a different, that's a different way of looking at it. Because you said you made that 180 switch. I always see people, when I look at a pendulum, like we are at one extreme. Like you came out of the corporate world and then you didn't want it anymore. So you went all the way to the other extreme. And like a pendulum does, it goes exactly as far to the other side as you were. And to me, balance just means trying to get that pendulum to move as little as possible, but also realizing it's always going to be moving. And I think that's a very big and important thing to take away from every podcast episode we do here.
Yeah, that's an awesome analogy.
Yeah. Because I'd love to hear, of course, I want to dive into your story a little bit. Because what led you to get into the corporate world? Did you feel any societal pressure of being successful? Was that parents, school, your environment that were pushing you in that way, or what led you to end up in that place?
Yeah, so that is interesting. So first of all, we use the word corporate. The world that I was in was selling into the corporate world. But if you would look at me and my colleagues and the working environment that we were in, that is like a kind of more like a Wolf of Wall Street type of culture, although not in the investment banking world and not with quite the same sums of money as them. Maybe take a few zeros off the end of the kind of numbers that we're dealing with. But, just to be clear that really what I was doing was sales. But it was selling into a corporate environment. It was kind of corporate compared to some careers. How did I get into it? I really did not plan to do that. I would not say that I had pressure from my parents to do that. What happened was I was a kid. I was a teenager. I was into drugs and raving and hip hop and, fuck the system. I was kind of a little rebel, I guess. And there was a lot of, basically there was a strong desire to do what the fuck I want and to not be told what to do. I was sick to death of school and education, which is why I left when I was 16. And I felt like it was just a bunch of like fucking lost robots, trying to tell me what I had to do. But how do they know what's good for me? Because I don't want to fucking end up like them. And so I dropped out of, I started sixth form college. I went to a college for like 3 months and then I dropped out. And partly because I wanted to do something else. I wanted to take control of my life. And also partly because I had just been not doing any work. I've been bunking off and smoking weed all day, every day. And I had like 3 months of coursework to catch up on. And it reached a point where it was just impossible. And that it was so tempting to just quit. So I did. And then I needed a job because my parents were not very happy about the fact that I dropped out of college. Everyone in my family and like extended family all gone to university. So I was the first person who was kind of not doing that. And I just, I went around town, like getting out CVs for everything. Like in pubs, in cafes, clean dishes, do whatever. I was calling up job adverts in the newspaper. And that's actually where I got my first job. It was for a call center selling magazine subscriptions to consumers over the phone. And I thought that sounded like horrible. I thought it sounded like fucking hell. I had this image of cold calling, being, disturbing you in the middle of dinner and hearing my parents, which I'm like, what are you selling? So that's core of the thing. We're on the term preference. I was not into the idea of capitalism and, materialism at all. I was like into Buddhism and kind of Durden philosophy, But I got the job. They offered it to me. I did it, and from like the first week, it was just so much fun. I was like surrounded by adults. I was really good on the phone. I was good at selling. I was suddenly making like not good money, but for coming from like having an allowance or pocket money or some shit, to actually making my own money, and just having a lot of fun whilst doing it, and also finding like a different kind of a value system. When you're at school and college, it's kind of like can be a kind of nasty, intimidating, like the coolness hierarchy. I wasn't very cool at school, but when I went into the working environment and I was this 16-year-old kid who was like selling like mad and was just, fun and full of energy, everyone loved me and treated me well. And I just, I had a good time basically. And what happened during that, I stayed there for 1 year. My idea about sales changed. And I thought, look, I still don't want to become this consumer materialist bot, who's all about money. But I now saw a path to financial freedom. I saw that if I would do this sales thing for like 10 years and absolutely smash it, then I could set myself up to be able to live life on my own terms, however I want for the rest of my life. Right. And that was an empowering thought, one which actually brings many people into the world of sales. Like a lot of salespeople, if they're watching this, will maybe be nodding to relate to that. That's what happened. So after a year at the call center, I just interviewed for every different type of sales job I could find, which was recruitment, real estate, like oil, brokerage, fucking events and media sales, like anything you could think of. But at this point, I'm still 17, right? So not a lot of companies took me that seriously, but I did have a bit about me. So I got the time of day. And in the end, I got a job in recruitment, tech recruitment, like niche high-end technology recruitment, I guess you could call it.
No, like before you go on, let me just elaborate on some very interesting parts of that story of, okay, you left school, you left college, that's all good, but you didn't continue sitting on your ass smoking weed all day. Like, I have done as well in my past. You actually went out there and you were looking for the opportunities. And even though it was something where you said, I don't really want to do it, you still gave it a shot. You saw the opportunity and you went for it. You were open to whatever it was. And, that passion, that love, or I'm not sure if I can call it passion or love, or the enjoyment of sales came out of a very, very unexpected corner. Because so many people are so afraid to make a change or to do something that I don't think I will like it. Well, you will never know until you try. And I think, what you're saying here is a big statement to that. So I just wanted to, to put an exclamation mark around that.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, because that is such a fucking profound truth. And it's one of the things that on the journey of reflection and transformation over the last years, that's one of the kind of things that sometimes I realize and I see it and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, no wonder there's no, I'm feeling less freshness now. It's because back then I was just fucking playing. I was going for it. I didn't have expectations that every move I made had to be the right one with all of this thought into it. I was just doing shit because you've got the whole life ahead of you. You're young, whatever. And some of the, one of the reflections that I've had is that some of the greatest and most significant chapters, arc storylines of my life have come from these chance happenings. Like this business here, which has been like kind of like main focus for the last 8 years, or a partial focus, and now my main focus. This came out of literally being on holiday here, liking the place, getting to know a guy who had some land, overhearing that, that this guy had some land, and then having a chat with him, and then ending up deciding to start a business and build a fucking reggae bar, which turned into a hostel. And if I hadn't stayed in the bungalow next door to that bar, that reggae bar where that happened and where that conversation took place, if I hadn't have overheard it, I wouldn't have thought about it. I wouldn't have decided to do it. I wouldn't have been living in Thailand for the last 8 years. It's why, just like reload and journey came, that changed my life completely. And that also happened just because an email went around the company, we're opening an office in Munich, who wants to go? And I was like, fucking some of that.
And again, it's seeing the opportunity, but then also taking action upon it, because we all get opportunities thrown our way all the time, but very often we just wimple them off, or we don't see them, or I can't do this, or whatever excuse we have in our mind. I'll be like, I already see that this is going to become a theme in your story, what I very much enjoy, because we haven't had that as strong as how you're saying that right now. I'll be like, so, okay, so you were in the call center, then you went into the tech sales. How long were you there? Was that your last sales job until the change happened, or?
I moved a couple of companies, but although the last company I was there for 10 years, but I did basically the technology recruitment sales job from when I moved to the call center for like 13 years. I did 2 years, then I fucked off backpacking for 6 months, and then I came back, and then I did another 10 years of that.
And then, but in those 10 years, you also did the winters in Austria, and you were traveling and working remotely already as well, right?
Well, at the end of those 10 years, yeah. Those 10 years,
Look at that.
30 years ago, like, I'm making the timeline so confusing now. But from basically, I did the tech recruitment stuff from when I was 17, just nearly 18, until I was 30. And the time when I was doing the winter seasons, in 2016, I was not remote yet, but I was going a lot to my outfit already for a while. That's when I met you, I think. In 2017, that's when I was able to do that job remotely, part-time for 2 years when I was doing the seasons. And, and then 2019 at 30, that's when I quit that job.
So let's say you were a digital nomad before it became a thing, huh?
Before it was called Rowan, before nomad.
Yeah.
Before COVID. I mean, it was a thing, but in my industry, it wasn't. Like, recruitment is not famous. It's famous for being a very kind of aggressive, cutthroat, hardcore sales environment, micromanagement. So the remote thing was a big deal back then. Yeah, now everybody is. Back in the company that I used to work for, nobody was remote, but now they all are.
Like, so in 2019, you said you made the shift. Like, take us through what happened there, in externally, but also into you internally in that process leading up to saying, fuck this, I don't want this anymore, I want something else.
For sure. So I think I have to go back a little bit to provide the context for that, right? The early years of sales, after this initial success in the call center, moving into a much more challenging role in a much more competitive, industry was tough. I was still doing okay in the first years, but I was not doing anywhere near as well as I thought I would, which happens to a lot of people coming into this industry. They sell in the dream, you buy it, and you're like, yeah, they told me it's tough, but I'm the fucking fiddlers, and I'm going to smash this. And then, like 4 or 5 years of really working long hours, relentless, like canvas cold calling into these large enterprises and trying to schmooze these corporate people, and just with a very, very, very low conversion rate. It's a tough gig, and you start to lose faith in whether or not you'll actually be successful. Because the thing about this is, when you make it, you make shitloads of money and the job becomes really enjoyable, but there's this huge gap between everyone who's trying to and the people who've kind of broken through, opened some big clients and started to make a lot of money. And you never know if you're going to make it, because you're talking about going from, you make a very low basic salary and just a little bit of commission here and there, to earning like multiple 6 figures. It's your sole focus in life, or it was for me, right? Because it's such a big goal. And those were a tough 4 or 5 years, and there was a lot of struggles there with substances and debt and self-esteem, and just some dark days, but also some fun times. But eventually, what happened was I started to be successful, as we might say. Yeah, I started to open a couple of big accounts, do a lot of business, and all of a sudden, I was living that life that I had kind of like dreamed of and worked toward for so many years without any more sort of believing in it. And so I'm in my mid-20s, I'm making these multiple 6 figures, and I'm like the man at work or whatever, or at least I saw, I've been myself with myself alone, whether or not anyone else agreed. But I became the global top salesperson in my company, which was like, 7 offices around the world, at the time, about 250 people. And I was global top salesperson for 4 years. And we were also one of the like industry's leading businesses. So I definitely felt a pretty fucking high sense of accomplishment and achievement. And I was, at first, it was amazing. Yeah, I was not used to having these large sums of money deposited in my bank account every month and being able to do whatever I want financially, I guess. And, you know, it was good. And I was also on top of my game. I was living well. I had healthy routines and habits. I was living with great friends who I loved in a really nice place, going to work with good people. You know, there was a lot of stuff in my life that was good. And the success was kind of like the cherry on top, I guess. But what happened was earlier on, this is my perspective on what happened. Earlier on, I talked about this strong drive to be able to do whatever the fuck I wanted with my life, right? That's a great goal, but it's a limited goal because, okay, now you're there, what do you want to do? I had no fucking, I wanted to travel, and everyone always says the same thing. Travel, you know, I wanted to spend time, I wanted to do snowball seasons instead of just weekends, and I wanted to do this and that. But even that, I think there was a big disillusionment with the achievement of this goal. I was expecting that once I achieved this financial freedom, life would be amazing, you know, and that's just it. After that, happiness is taken care of. I think that was what I kind of subconsciously believed. Happiness was not just taken care of. So I thought, you know, I'm still unhappy because I'm chained to my desk all day. I've got the money, but I don't have the time. And then that's where this remote thing came from. And then over the 2 years of working remote, I had the money and all the time. And I just but now I don't have these healthy support structures around me of my colleagues and, you know, the accountability of going to work every day, living with my friend. Now I'm just like on my own, go wherever I want, do whatever I want. And I started to just really, less well, like more drugs, more drinking earlier on in the day, squeezing all of the instant gratification very as hard as I could, because that's kind of how I grew up entertaining myself. So for now I've got the time and the money, what do? More drugs, you know, louder music, more drinking, more extremism, and that was like just fucking like a black hole that kind of swallowed me. So
that's like, if I may, because like what I hear you saying there as well is so you worked really hard to get to that point of being successful in the idea that you had before of what successful means, right? Like being the top salesman. Like congratulations on that still, because that is a big achievement. But still, so you reached that point of success where you thought happiness is going to be taken care of. And I feel like in the professional world, financial freedom it's still that strong idea of once I'm financially free, everything else is taken care of. And then you even say like time freedom, because that's the other thing, you know, the digital nomadism, like everyone wants to travel and go and live in Bali and do this and do that. And so you had both of that, but you still weren't feeling that what you were hoping to feel. And I think there is something to look at there in the sense of that instant gratification. You were looking for that more and more and more. So how long, so you reached that point of being successful in your business, then you were able to travel. The gratefulness for that moment and the feeling of achievement from that point of success, how long did that actually last for you?
I think there were some phases. So first I had the money and I was like, whoop-de-doo, this is amazing. And then after a year or two, I was like, but the job is kind of boring. So I started managing a team that will give me some fulfillment. That will give me some purpose. Then I did that for a year and a half. And I was like, this isn't actually as fulfilling, not really filling that gap. I think what I really need is to have more time and to be geographically free. And then I got the part-time and the remote. And then that's probably had an even lesser shelf life. It's difficult to tell exactly how long that lasted because I didn't realize how unhappy I was until it was suddenly like deafening, like fucking unbearable, because you just kind of everyone around you thinks that you're living that best life ever. And I'm projecting that image and I'm reveling in that version, that image of myself, but it's kind of like an autopilot. And then at a certain point, I just kind of realized I just kind of like faced the mirror or whatever and realized I'm actually not fucking happy at all. Like if I don't get myself a light drink by this time in the afternoon, I'm getting cranky, and that's the only thing I look forward to.
So would you say that you were, except for the drugs, the booze, the all the other forms of instant gratification, would you say that you were using your career as well, and at first the busyness in your career and all of these things to escape the feeling of unhappiness, to just not feel it and to just blame it on something, on the not being financial free and the not being time free and the working too much?
I would say yes, that was a part of it for sure. You're like, I'm successful at work, so I'm on top of it. Everything's fine. There's a big element of that. And then there is also the fact that, it's an ego thing, right? There's also this, once I am that, it's not just once I have all that, it's also once I am all that, once I am that person that I've looked up to with all of these other people I've dreamt of being, I'm going to fucking walk around in a nice suit and like, subtly let everyone know that I'm making loads of money, subconsciously, I guess. And then, and that's just not a fucking rewarding, fulfilling way to live at all. You want to be that person, great. But if you then kind of now just make your life all about that, that's a disgusting and depressing way to. And I don't think I made my life all about that, because I wasn't really that guy wearing all the flashy suits and shit. I would go around in a fucking tracksuit and, not necessarily a nice one. I was kind of understated in my right? But that was also part of my ego identity. I wanted people to notice that I was understated in my role, And
So what I hear you say very often is you want to be that certain person. So were you trying to live up to the image of someone that you wanted to be in the eyes of someone else?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Sometimes I think it's difficult for us to really, really, for anybody to really analyze your motivations, yeah, and strip it down to knowing, did I do that for me, or did I do that for, for the way that I was seen? Did you do that act of kindness out of kindness, or was it because you wanted to be seen as kind? So I don't know if I can answer that perfectly, but for sure I think so. Yes. Because I think that, there's a big part in who we want to be. How do you want to be seen in the world? What do you want to be remembered as? What legacy do you want to leave? And how do you want people to talk about you after you're dead and stuff, I think that in a significant part of our psychology.
100%. That was also the reason why I asked that question. Because I can't remember who asked me or where I got it from, but it was an exercise to write down, how do you see yourself? How do people talk about you? And how do you think people think about you? And, see all of that and then seeing the differences between them was a really, really, really interesting exercise. And that also made me aware of exactly what you said, the motivation of doing certain things. And it made me hyper aware in some moments, man, sometimes, I know this is going off track a little bit, but anyway, I remember sitting in the car and, I didn't, was a Land Rover I had before, it didn't have automatic lights. So I had to turn them on manually. And I would think about it of people drive by my car and then not turn them on so they don't see me turning them on, that they think I have automatic lights. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing in your head? Who even cares? Nobody's ever going to notice. But it's just very interesting to see how our mind, how much we focus on how other people see us. And, I can definitely imagine in the position that you were in, that played a big role in that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And the golden handcuffs, that's part of the golden handcuffs. The term, the golden handcuffs, i.e. like you're in a situation that's too good to leave. And that's often said about people who are earning loads of money in their career, but they hate their job, but they can't leave because of the money. Not just the money, also because of who the money allows them to be, I think.
Yeah.
That was definitely part of it for me as well. The good points. I'm very much enjoying your acknowledgements and your observations here as I just kind of blast stream of consciousness words.
Well, that's why we're here, right? But like anyone who's listening and is now, feeling a certain something in their body, like thinking about the golden handcuffs, if you're in a successful place at the moment in your career, but you're not necessarily liking your job, potentially pause this podcast and think about it for a second. Why are you still in that job? Is that because you feel like you're not golden handcuffs? Is that because of the money? Is that because of the, what Alex said, of the money allowing you to be the person that you are today? And, asking yourself, who do you want to be? What is the next step? But cool. Like fast forwarding back to, okay, you were in that tech job, but then you said you were standing in front of the mirror and you said, I am not happy. You were falling a little bit more into that black hole more and more. Go on. What happened there?
Yeah, I was kind of trying to talk myself into, stay another 3 months because the money's good and you should save it because you keep spending, and then but it was getting unbearable. It's difficult for someone who's not in that situation to perhaps to imagine what I mean here. I actually spoke to someone the other day who's in the situation that I'm talking about when I was. Now, every now and then because I talk about this stuff on LinkedIn openly, and every now and then I get another person from that industry, maybe a former colleague or maybe someone I've never met, and they message me and they go, oh my fucking God, what you've described, I'm there. Like the walls are closing in, I just can't fucking take it anymore. I want to run away for whatever reasons. It's like different, everyone's different, but everyone's the same. And, but yeah, the thing that is the common theme is that in what they're describing and what I'm describing is always that it's just becoming unbearable. Something is becoming fucking unbearable, bro. And the pressure and the desire to just fuck it off and run away is so extreme. And some people are just there and just squeeze the life out of themselves, and other people eventually just fuck off. And I was at that point, I was going a little bit insane, if you ask me, but that was also partly because I was like smoking way too much weed and it was starting to affect me differently than it did when I was younger. And I was also drinking too much and, doing a little bit too much of the other stuff. And I was in a meeting with my boss, who is an amazing mentor in my life. And basically he just said to me, like, are you okay? We were talking about account planning for something client in Germany. He said, are you okay? And I said, actually, no, I think I now have to quit. And that's how it ended after 10 years. I was working.
What?
Yeah, literally just in the middle of doing this like business development meeting. He said, are you all right, Alex? Because you're off. And I was like, I'm not. I don't think I am. And actually, I think I can't do it anymore. I've got to quit, like, right. And I did. And he said, take a sabbatical and think about it. And I said, I will, but I probably won't come back. And then I left. And after that, I went on a retreat, my first ever retreat. I went to California, to the Esalen Institute for a 1 month long retreat, which was fucking like life-changing in a very literal sense. I think obviously there were some other catalysts in that being a life-changing event. I left the job of 10 years and the kind of career of like 14 years of sales at that point. And I went sober as well for like 6 months. But that month was the first, like when I walked into that retreat, like hungover and come down. And then I started 6 months of sobriety. But the retreat was like it was in hindsight, really the perfect thing for me because I had just been non-stop for all these years, non-stop, just I'm either working or I'm squeezing the instant gratification berries, smoking weed, drinking, taking drugs, raving, computer gaming, whatever it was. I was just always plugged in to one thing or the other, plugged in or like knocked out, however you want to look at it. And then I went on this retreat and suddenly unplugged. and I'm far away from the world that has been my world for all those years. And even the absence of that employer, but just the fact that I left the employer, I was talking about this the other day, the fact that I left that after 10 years of being there, subconsciously, I think my brain just knew, my mind understood that it could let go of a lot of the connections, the attachments. And it was so freeing. Like I was seeing the world in a different way, because in a way, I knew like pretty much every one of these 200, 250 people in the company, and my value system was affected by that. The way I would look at people and things was definitely impacted by the way, the perspectives that community would have in a way, So when I left, it was unbelievably impactful. But what happened on the retreat, it was like a coaching program. So I kind of learned what coaching really meant in terms of introspection, reflection, visualization. It was all about understanding, what you want, reflecting on the experiences you've been having in life and who you are, what your characteristics and your traits are, and what you want and what you're going to do about it. That was one part. And the other part was kind of like positive psychology and some spirituality, which also happens anyway. If you sit yourself in nature for a month, away from the job and away from substances, you're going to have a pretty fucking spiritual experience as you slow down and you start to become present and aware. So that was a game changer. Sorry, go on.
And because I heard you say now, when you're still talking about the business, also earlier in the podcast, in our conversation, you said the value system. And then now on that retreat, you're talking about what you want, what you want, who you are, your characteristics. I, of course, know how much values play into all of this, but could you give us your perspective or your idea of the value system, just to make sure that the listeners understand?
Sure, I can. First of all, I'm going to say I'm not like I'm pretty much not coaching very much anymore. I think I told you the last few months I've wound it back. I'm not taking on any new clients, and I'll be finishing like all of my stuff by the end of the year. And I'm just kind of taking a break. Maybe I'll come back, maybe not, as I focus on this business. But as a coach, sometimes I found that value work was a little bit like, I don't know, overdone. So for me, I think there's only so much value you can get out of like getting really, really deeply analytical about what your values are and stuff like that. So, but you to give my so that is one part of my take on values. I think that sometimes it's people bang on about it a little bit too much, but essentially, if you haven't looked at that and you've just been going like this forward of your life and you don't think about what actually important to me and what more important, all of this stuff isn't, that all of this stuff is important. But what happens when you actually try to kind of focus on that and go, well, what's more important? What is the most important? That's where the real power comes from, because you get these insights like, fucking hell, okay. Actually, it's clear for me that this is more important, way more exciting, way more meaningful to me than these other topics, And when I look at my life, I see that I'm starving myself of that. I don't have meaningful connection, or I don't have like ambitious pursuits in my life. Yet that's something that I yearn for and that I value. That it's just a very powerful moment where you realize, okay, well, what would it do for me if I would just organize my life in a way that I'm going to have more of that. I'm going to, honor these values, live closer in alignment with the values. That's what it's about. And yeah, I don't know, sometimes there's just a lot of like coachy terminology, some of it that makes me wriggle in my seat a little bit. And I think that a lot of people feel that way. And I don't want to, be lost in the noise of the Instagram coaches, talking about gratitude and values all day, although they're important things. But yeah, it's just about knowing, actually taking the fucking time to step back and reflecting, actually, what do I love? What do I care about? What is important to me? How much of that is in my life right now? And do I want to change that? And maybe you don't. Maybe you've already set up your life in a very conscious way. That's awesome. Don't spend the next 6 months analyzing and breaking down your values into different words. Just fucking roll with it, you know? But I was in a place where I had not taken a step back to reflect on who I was, what was important to me, how well I was living in line with what would make me happy. And so that all was just like life-changing insights, even though they're so simple and obvious.
Yeah, but I love that perspective on it, because I talk about values regularly myself. About, like you say it yourself, or how I understand it, it's never one thing. Just knowing your values is not going to solve everything, and too much of anything is not good. But it's what you say. It's just knowing what is important, what's more important, and then asking yourself, do I want more of this in my life? Because when I look at, for example, that financial freedom that you talked about before, well, of course, if you can't put food on your table, that is going to be the most important thing. That is going to be your highest value. And then that is normal. But if you can put food on the table, if you have a roof to sleep under, if you have enough to survive comfortably, then potentially other values are going to become more important. For me, when I look at it, internal freedom, for example, being free in my mind and my heart, and these kind of things, the connections, what you talked about, people, they're more important to me than having 200K in my bank account. And I think that is the important thing when it comes to values, to understand that, well, there's hundreds of important values. Which ones are the few that I can focus on? Because we have a very limited span of focus, we as human beings. Definitely with the whole social media, it's ruining that even more. And then it's just about knowing which ones are on top, because then we can slightly focus on that. And I think that is the main thing to take away from those values. So that's why I wanted to unpack that a little bit more.
Cool. Yeah, no, you're right to do so. I think I've just become a little bit allergic to the word sometimes, but actually that was one of the powerful things that came out of that month. It was just having a look at things and going, okay, well, what is important? What do you value? And what have you been doing? And where's the overlap and where's the gap? And I don't know, it sounds so simple, but at the time it was so profound. It was like, no wonder I've been feeling like shit. And when I was in that job, I was, I think I basically blamed a lot of my problems on it. If I was only free of this terrible curse that is giving me all of this financial freedom and all that, then I would be happy. If only I could quit. But then I realized, obviously I was not maintaining any meaningful connections in my life anymore. I was not doing any exercise. I was not eating or drinking well. I was, doing too much naughty stuff that was obviously taking a heavy toll on my health. I was also neglecting my work. So I was still making all the money, and I was still top salesperson in the company, but this was because of all of my existing clients, all the work that I'd done in the years previously. I was basically just kind of doing a little bit of work to keep all that stuff going, but I was not doing any of the hardcore, ambitious development stuff that normally would have been rewarding or fulfilling for me. So basically I was not showing up in any fucking area of my life that was important to me. And I felt like shit and I didn't know why. And then it was like, okay, well, maybe that's got something to do with it. Perfect.
Well, the simple things are very often the most important ones. It doesn't always have to be very difficult, because, simple is easy to follow. Simple is practical. And that's definitely, when we're not feeling at our best, is what we really need. Okay.
For sure.
So you did a month of that retreat. You did 6 months of sobriety. I can imagine, that it wasn't just that experience that led you to sitting on that chair right now in your own hostel in Koh Tao, doing what you're doing now. What changes did that create, except for And like, obviously there's going to be a lot, but how that you integrate, maybe that's a better question. How do you integrate what was happening there to change your life around once you came back home? Because very often we go somewhere when so many things happen, we come back home, we fall back in the same habits because that's what we're used to. What helped you in that integration process?
For sure. So first I would say, like, how did I integrate? I would say, well, not totally effectively. First of all, I'm still navigating my way through all of this and still not, living in all the right ways that I would like to, but I'm a lot better than I was. And, I think I took some practical steps. So one, I decided not to go back to that job after the sabbatical. That was clear. I just didn't, I was now in a good mental state, and I was like, I'm not going back. I want to create something else in my life, and I believe that I can. Which is kind of how I felt when I left school all those years ago, right? And so that was already a major thing. Cutting ties to what had been the main part of my life for 10 years or more. And then I also signed up for this coach training program, which is like nearly a year-long commitment of, coursework and exercises and relationships and connections and community and stuff. And I did that not to become a coach. I did that literally, for the answer to your question, to help me stay on track after I left that retreat. Halfway through, 3 weeks through the month, I was starting to get worried. This is amazing. I don't want to leave. I do have to leave. And then how am I going to not just go back to how everything was? And so one of the things that I did was I signed up for that program as a kind of accountability mechanism and an adventure to help me keep, to provide a way for me to keep exploring and going deeper into this kind of conscious living part. And that is what I did. And then along the way, I started coaching, obviously, because I needed to make some money, and it just happened naturally. My former employer came to me to do sales coaching, and so, yeah, does that answer the question? Those were the kind of practical steps. I think sometimes if you're trying to make a big change, like me going out of that career, even though I were able to identify in hindsight that obviously the job was not the cause of all my suffering, still, it would have been very, very difficult for me I was bored of it. I was bored of it, and I did want to do something new. And I'd already recreated myself and relit my motivation so many times over years in that role. And it was like, it would have been very fucking difficult for me to change my life in a radical way and create a new way of being without actually making some significant changes to the physical circumstances in my life, which in that case was that job. Sometimes that is going to give you such a boost of motivation that it's, even if you don't, I think it was the right thing for me to do.
Man, 100%. Because even though if, we can say it's just a job, but it's the emotional connection that we have to these things, and also some, not for everyone, but it can even lead to certain traumas that get stuck in our brain, that get triggered all the time being there. And I think if we make an internal change, only naturally our external world is going to change as well, because of course they're a reflection from each other, right? So, and I think that what you did there is after those 3 weeks, because I can imagine that coming of 3, 5, 10 years of working hard and, a few years of the substances, the unhappy life, you name it. And then, because 3 weeks is absolutely nothing compared to that. To then, have that fear. But I think it's very powerful for you to say, instead of, I'm going to figure it out by myself. No, you're going to continue and you're going to invest in yourself, and you're going to find a certain level of accountability. And, for everyone who's listening, the Thrive Tribe, look the link in the description, also for accountability. But nonetheless, I think that's a very, very big and important step in there. And, leading into that journey, leading into where you are today, because you're saying that you still went into that sales rep. Now you're in Koh Tao. You were saying that 8 years ago that ID started from Koh Tao. How did all that develop?
Yeah. So One thing I do want to also just say to add to the last topic before I kind of forget this, I think it's an important point. One of the things that I've kind of realized over the last few years, at least right now, I see this as true. Sometimes our perspectives change over time, but I still think that, as I said at the beginning of the call, like creating something like massive and, and financially successful as well, this stuff is still important to me. And I don't know, have you ever done like an Enneagram test to see which it's like another one of these kind of personality types, like Myers-Briggs or something, but it's different.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. Maybe I think that the personality assessments can be good and helpful, but they can also be dangerous if you become too obsessive with them. But I'm an Enneagram 3, and that is called Achiever. And it really very, very, very deeply fucking speaks to me, like the description of the achiever, And so I think obviously people are different, and we are chemically wired and neurologically wired in different ways to one another. And some things are obviously more important to some others. I don't. So I have kind of initially, when I came out of that previous career path, I thought like I would maybe want to push away this pursuit of lofty goals and financial gains. And it kind of like was a bit of a disconnect for me, because I was, that didn't feel right for me. Actually, I want it. And maybe I wanted to be somebody who didn't want that. Who didn't want, but that's not who I am. So now, for example, this business, the hostel, bar, restaurant, soon to be dive center as well in a week or two. Expanding this business and making it big and financially successful and having loads of, disposable income and stuff. That is still important for me, and it's a big part of my life. But it's not, I learned the hard way that that is not going to take care of my happiness and my well-being. And losing myself in total obsession and pursuit of that is no way for me to live. And so it's really important for me. I suppose this is also a part of the integration. I kind of proactively take steps to make sure that I'm still having meaningful connections. I try to contact, sometimes I'm more on the ball with on this stuff than others, but try to make sure that I keep in contact with some of the really close friendships that I have around the world. You yourself have been living that expat and nomad life for a few years, so you can probably relate to that. Is one of the biggest challenges
100%.
of living around the world is making sure you've still got that strong community and stuff. But I don't beat myself up about wanting to make loads of money from my business. It wouldn't have to be about money. If I was like spearheading a movement that was going to make a massive impact in the world, I'm sure I could become even more obsessed with that. But and that plays into this business a little bit. But whatever, I just wanted to kind of make that point that embracing my desire to create and to achieve has been a part of the later transformation.
Man, I love that sorry, go.
No, you go.
I love that you shared that, because let's be honest, the last question wasn't all that good, because when I wanted to ask the question, I completely forgot the question that I wanted to ask, because what I actually wanted to ask. So I'm happy that you took over and you actually shared something valuable. What I actually wanted to ask, because we as human beings, we're all afraid of judgment as well, right? That's like we talked about a little bit earlier. We find it important of how people think about us, and even though we say, I don't care how he thinks about me, like we all do up to a certain point where nobody wants to be seen like a dickhead by other people. So I like because you left school when you were 16, then you went into that sales job and you made more than one really big changes in your life. Because I know there's so many people that want change, but they're really stuck because they're afraid of what their community, their closer friends would say, how that would affect their sense of belonging. How did that work for you? Like how do you deal with that in these moments?
That is a really awesome question again, Martin, because that's also one of the kind of reflections that I had that was really powerful for me when I realized like leaving school, for example, leaving college, when that was like an ad for my family, that was like an absolute no, it was like, you do not do that. And my friends were mostly all doing that, going to college and stuff. And I just kind of, though I had a lot of confidence that I would just make it in the world at that time. I felt like this is a fucking waste of time. And I know that if I go and just work around other people, that I'm going to be able to do whatever we're all doing better. I don't know. That's how I felt. I was ready to better myself. And it wasn't a conscious decision. It was just, that's how I felt, and then, so I just did it. And, then later when I quit the job, for example, that was, my friends were saying to me, "You're fucking mental." Like some of my friends wouldn't say that because they just wouldn't, I don't know. I guess they trusted my, decisions, but some of my friends who had a more kind of a mentory role with me, like my older friends, yeah, they would be like, "Mate, you're making a wrong decision. You're a fucking idiot." One of my best mates who's been a big mentor in my life used to be one of my bosses. And he said to me, like, "This is done. This is done, bro. Look at how much money you're making. Look at how many hours a week you work." Because when I was part-time and remote, I was doing very, very little work. And you just need to compartmentalize, and just fucking deal with it. And I was like, I remember he was in my office. We had this conversation at Mo's. And he was telling me this. And his wife, oh, I fucking know as well, she was going, "I believe in him if he wants to do it." And I was like, "Fucking yeah." And I was like, "Bro, just trust me. This is not the end of of what I'm capable of or what I want in my life. Like, I don't know what it is that I'm going to do. But I'm sure that it will be something. And I'm sure that I need to do this. So I'm going to do it." I just felt that level of conviction, it's a combination of the conviction with the stimulus of like, it's a combination of the conviction plus the circumstances making me want to fucking run away. Because I had the circumstances making me want to run away at school. I had them also at the job. And so, yeah, I know. I sometimes, when I realize that, I kind of want to give myself a bit of credit. I feel really good about the fact that I have that level of faith in myself, because I don't always. No one does always, but it's nice to see that some of the pivotal moment. Also, creating this business, right? I did this in the beginning. This was, with a Thai Rasta guy with dreadlocks down to his knees, who I just happened to really get on with. He'd been like, selling me weed and cocktails for 2 weeks. Yeah, but I just had a good fucking feeling. And that I just, I got on with him, and a bit more went into it than that, obviously. But in the end, I just took a punt. Me and my friend were going to go together, and he said, "No, it's probably too much risk, not enough assurance, and, not enough reward." But that might be right, but I don't know. I just fucking, I just want to do it. And then did it. But that didn't work out for me. I also lost loads of money doing things like that in the past. But anyway, sorry.
Nope. No, it's really good, that you make all these points, because, what I wanted to emphasize and everything that you've just shared is the fact of you're standing in that position. And even though, there's only a very limited amount of control that we have, or influence that we have upon the opinion of other people about us. But you have full control on the opinion of yourself. So if you're going to let every decision be led in how much belief other people have in you, you're going to lead a very, 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 very limited life, because there's always going to be people that don't believe in you. And what you said as well, in that you were 16, but you said, "I believe in myself." You were leaving that job and you said, "I believe in myself, of creating something else. This is not the end for me." And I think that is a very big statement to make, in the sense of, yes, of course, it's good to ask for advice and to talk things through and reflect on it. But in the end, it's going to come down to you believing in yourself or not. Because if you don't believe in yourself, I can imagine so many people, if they would have been in the same position as you were in when you were 16, going into that call center job or starting that tech job, if they didn't have that belief in themselves that they would quit way, way earlier and just go down the more standard road that is laid out for everyone. And, there, I think when you want to create a successful life, your successful life, your unique successful life, it's important that you believe that you can do it. So if you don't, it's very important to work on that, and maybe like the number one priority, I would say.
For sure. I agree. Without that, what's going to, how will you take any of the actions to create it if you don't actually believe that you can? But we all get blindsided. Like, of course, we all have times where we feel more empowered and times where we feel more disempowered or less empowered. And but it's a powerful thing.
Yeah, 100%. And it's okay to feel both, it's both part of the human experience. But like, to slowly wind down, two more questions before, you can talk a little bit about you if there's something you want to talk about as well. Like, because you said you were, how old were you when you quit your job?
30.
So you were 30, you were making, multiple 5 figures. You achieved all the things that you did. Is there, and then you had people say to you, like compartmentalization, you just have to suck it up. Like, you're making all this money, you're doing all these things. Is there an age limit to completely changing your life around?
Oh, I mean, I don't think so. I don't think I'm the authority on that topic, but I don't fucking think so. I mean, the great example that used to go around LinkedIn I don't think you're a very active LinkedIn user, but maybe it goes on Instagram and shit as well. But the KFC guy, what's his name?
Yeah.
He started paying
I know
55 or something, right? So that's just a awesome story. And I definitely don't think so. On the retreats that I went to in California, the first retreat I went to, we had people of all ages. There were people in their like late 60s who had, left the job after 30 years, or another one whose husband had died after they had just, spent their lives traveling the world together for 30, they were each other's lives for 30 years, and they were starting a new life. It was very inspiring. So how long? The age thing would be my perspective.
No, but that's just something that no matter how old you are when you're listening, know that it's never too late to make the change that you're looking to make. And then, so let's take your situation. So there is someone might be listening here today, or whenever he or she's listening, he is doing very well in his career path, whether it's corporate or not, doesn't really matter, just in general in his career path, but is feeling unhealthy, or notices he's distracting himself, looking for that instant gratification through, even if it's not substances, even if it's sex, sports, whatever it may be. What would be the advice that you give to that person to find his or her own path?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And there's a few things. One, if you haven't already, then I would consider talking to a coach or some coaches, because I'm not saying that's a one-size-fits-all solution to things, but particularly if you're feeling lost in life, you're at a crossroads, you're at a transition, or you're just not really understanding what you're experiencing or why, and if you haven't experienced like the world of sort of transformative coaching before, you might not even know that is an option that exists. It's literally people whose training and profession is to ask you questions that will challenge your worldview, that will unlock insights that can help you to feel differently and see the blind spots where you might be creating some of your own problems and where you really might want to make changes. I just didn't know that existed, really. And so when I found it, I was blown away. That'd be the first thing, consider that. Yeah, I'm not have to do it by yourself. And it might be much more effective if you don't just try and do it by yourself. The second thing I would say is with or without a coach, take a step back and look at all the aspects of your life and see, are you taking care of yourself in all the ways that would make you happy? What are the things that you do value? What are the experiences that you love? What did you used to love and enjoy? And how much of that is in your life? How much of those meaningful connections, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? Because what a lot of successful and unhappy people tend to do is make their life all about that work. And then when it doesn't do enough for them, then they're unhappy. But there's probably a lot of fulfillment to come from the other areas of your life that may be neglected. That'll be the second thing. And the third thing, as I said earlier, sometimes it's just time for a fucking change. It doesn't mean that the job sucks. But maybe you would actually really just like to do something else, right? And in that case, I would say if you're making a lot of money, you're in such an amazing situation because you have the opportunity to start something. Yeah. First of all, you've got the time and the space and the time right now to explore different options. What would I like to do? What kind of business would I like to have? If it's about starting a business, which it might be if they're like an achiever, Enneagram type of person like me, have a look at what you might want to do. But if there's so many opportunities to start a business in a million different industries, and you just have to do it well. And having capital to start it is such a massive, massive, massive advantage. You don't need it, but fucking hell, talk about rigging the deck and having a good, improving the chances of success. So, you don't need to feel trapped like this is the end. And what if I leave because now I don't have all this money anymore? Like you've made it. You've made it this far. You've made a success of what you've done here. Why would you not be able to make a success of something you do elsewhere? And why not do something new? But, have some sort of a plan, because don't waste it. Don't just quit out of, boredom without any kind of a plan, if possible. Be proactive because you're in a great fucking opportunity. You're in a great situation and you have the opportunity to create the next chapter of your life in a way that will be even more fulfilling than the earlier era of this chapter was.
Yes, man. I love that because the things that you touch base on is also the things that, you talked about here of, have a plan, learn what you want in life. I think that's an important one, but also really that part where you said of see it, the opportunity that you have. Yeah. If you are financially very successful in the position where you are today, it's an opportunity, like you said, to create something. And I think that is a very, very beautiful way of looking at it. It's not a wasted time or, you don't have to keep on doing what you're doing. It's an opportunity to create something that, potentially you're much more passionate about, or at least going in a direction of something that feels more personal. And, when it comes to the coach, I think a very important thing to say is don't go with the first one that you talk to. It's important that you match and that you vibe with your coach and that your coach has a certain lifestyle or has something that you are looking for as well. Because if you have a coach that has a life completely different than anything that you would possibly want, he's not going to be the right coach for you, because he or she's going to coach you, with his or own backstory, even though we shouldn't, it's impossible to completely shut that out. So, yeah. And as a little side note, if anyone is interested, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to have a conversation. But yeah, one last question. Because you said it a little bit in the beginning, but I'm going to put you on the spot now again anyway. If you would have to write a new textbook definition of success, what would that be for you?
I mean, if I wanted to just get an easy out here or technicality, I would call it something like the achievement of a certain goal to the specified parameters. I want to talk about, what makes a good life, then it's going to be similar to what I said earlier. Yeah, it's going to be healthy, happy, and having a net positive or at least neutral impact on the world. I don't think that you've got an obligation to go out and save the world, although I think that it's great if we all do that. I think it's a very enriching thing that will make, kind of this makes you happy. It's like Dalai Lama called it the selfish kindness or something. I forgot what he calls it, but it's the paradox that being kind to others is actually being generous to others is going to be happy. But living in a healthy and happy way that makes at least a neutral, if not positive, impact on the world a success.
Yeah. I love that you add the making a neutral or positive impact in the world. We haven't had that yet, so appreciate you for that, Alex. So, of course, really appreciated this conversation, but before we really close off, I want to give you the space as well to potentially share a little bit about your hostel. I know you were thinking about retreats. If you have something coming up, this is your moment. Feel free to talk about it. And also feel free to share where people can connect with you if you still want that.
For sure. Thank you, bro. Yeah. I mean, in terms of connecting with me, I'm always happy to hear from people. If they're, I'm always happy to chat with people. I am not offering any coaching anymore, so you can contact me. I'm not going to try and sell you something. But also, yeah, I'm not really looking to take any clients or anything like that. But if you are working, if the story resonates with you and you want to say hello, you want to have a chat or anything, I'd love to hear from you. That's awesome. Best way to contact me is probably on the, or you could send me an email, alexj89@gmail.com. And other than that, about the hostel, I've told you that we are, midterm, I want to be moving in the direction of doing more sort of retreats, workshops, and having like a transformative and wellness element to the business, which is true, but it's kind of not an immediate focus right now. So at the moment we are operating as a hostel, restaurant, bar, and like I said, we're opening a scuba dive school in like a week. We've nearly got all the paperwork done. Very excited about that. We have daily yoga classes and stuff, but in terms of retreats, I'm not sure when they'll be back on the radar. They will come, but they're not on right now. The business is called Deja Vu Jumbo Hostel. But if you're in Thailand, come by. But I'm not expecting to be enrolling hostel guests from this podcast. But I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to promote or whatever. I would say that I think your concept. I'm not a member of Thrive Tribe, but obviously I've done a little bit of work with you before. I've attended your retreat. I think the concept of Thrive Tribe is amazing, genuinely, and especially having been living that expat and nomad, at least expat life for like 13 years now, and the kind of self-employed life for the last 5 years. It's just so community is so fucking important, and not just any community, but like the right community who are on a similar mission to you. I think that's an amazing concept, and I would recommend people to reach out to you about that for sure.
I highly appreciate that, Alex. Thank you. So the link is in the description for the Thrive Tribe. But anyway, like anyone who is traveling, who is in Thailand, who is in Koh Tao, who potentially wants to get their scuba diving license, definitely go to Deja Vu as well. And, tell him that, if you see Alex, tell him that you heard him through the podcast, because he's saying he's not enrolling any podcast, any hostel guests through this. Prove him wrong, guys. Come on.
I love that. Love that. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the mountain in my outfit, right?
Definitely a few months away, and we'll be able to do this in real life and get a couple of good runs in there as well.
A couple of good runs, and maybe a couple of good beers. Let's see.
That will probably be part of it. Let's be honest. Now, all right, Alex, I really appreciate this conversation. Loved it. I think lots of valuable points were shared. So thank you for being here, and I hope everyone got something out of this as well.
Thank you, Tony Ryan, very much. And see you soon.
Ciao. Thanks for joining me today. You made it to the end, so it must have been interesting. If today's episode sparked a thought or an idea, why keep it to yourself? Your takeaway could be the message someone else needs to hear right now. So share it on your socials, tag me, and let us know what spoke to you the most. And in the future, the best takeaways will be bundled into an episode, so you could even be featured. And if you want more insights like this, conversations and workshops around these topics, then make sure to check out the Thrive Tribe for the link in the description. It's a space where personal and professional well-being comes together. And to close off, if you've got an inspiring story yourself or you know someone who does, then please reach out to me because I'm always eager to connect more with people and share more inspiring stories. Have a wonderful day and see you in the next episode.